Hello, this is Sylvester Frazier, and we're about to embark on a journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Many of us, when we've been asked to read, we skip things like the preface and the forwards. Well, today we're going to start with the preface of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's some the key takeaway for you here is to understand the structure of this book. It's going to be the preface will tell you this book is divided into two key parts: a instruction part, which is the first 100 up until page 164, and also in the back there's some personal stories. Now, some of you may have heard in the past that maybe the personal stories are just that. They're just stories and they're not the instructions on how to do this program. I'm going to tell you, my personal experience is that the the personal stories are what allowed me to become a full functioning member of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I didn't believe I was an alcoholic when or had always been an alcoholic when I walked into these rooms. I thought that I had become one at some time, but the stories helped me understand what the alcoholism. At the end of this reading, we're going to have three key takeaways. Preface. This is the fourth edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. The first edition appeared in April 1939, and the following 16 years, more than 300 copies went into circulation. The second edition, published in 1955, reached a total of more than 1,150,000,000 copies. The third edition came off the press in 1976 and achieved a circulation of approximately 19,550,000 in all formats. Because this book has become the basic text for our society and help large numbers of alcoholic men and women to recovery, there exists a strong sentiment against any radical changes being made in it. Therefore, the first portion of this volume, describing the AA recovery program, has been largely left untouched in the course of revisions for the second, third, and fourth editions. The section called The Doc's Opinion has been kept intact, just as it was originally written in 1939 by the late Dr. William D. Silkworth, our society's great medical benefactor. The second edition added the appendices, the 12 traditions, and the directions for getting in touch with AA. But the chief change was in the section of personal stories, which was expanded to reflect the fellowship's growth. Bill's story, Dr. Bob's nightmare, and one other personal history from the first column were retained intact. Three were edited and one of those were retitled. New versions of two stories were written and with new titles. 30 completely new stories were added, and the story section was divided into three parts under the same headings that are used now. In the third edition, Part 1, Pioneers of AA, was left unchanged. 9 stories in Part 2, They Stopped in Time, were carried over from the second edition. 8 new stories were added. In Part 3, They Nearly Lost All, 8 stories were retained. 5 new ones were added. The fourth edition includes the 12 concepts for world service and revises the 3 sections of personal stories as follows. One new story has been added in part 1, and 2 originally appeared in part 3 have been repositioned there. 6 stories have been deleted. 6 of the stories in part 2 have been carried over, 11 new ones have been added, and 11 taken out. Part 3 now includes 12 new stories. 8 were removed in addition to the 2 that were transferred to part 1. All changes made over the years in the Big Book, AA, fond name for this volume, have the same purpose: to represent the current membership of Alcoholics Anonymous more accurately, and therefore to reach more alcoholics. If you have a drinking problem, we hope that you may pause Hello, in this reading is one of the Sylvester 42 Frazier. Stories and think, Yes,
And I am
that
about
happened to
to,
me. Or
we're
more
about to
importantly,
embark
yes,
on
I
a
felt like
journey
that.
through
Or
the
most
big book of
importantly, I
Alcoholics
believe this
Anonymous.
program can work
Many
for
of
me
us,
too.
when we've been asked to
So
read,
those
we skip
so
things
those
like the
three last three
preface
statements are the
and the
basis
forwards.
for
Well,
the
today
three
we're going to
questions
start with the
that
preface of the
as
big
you
book of
when you read a
Alcoholics
personal story,
Anonymous.
we'll read one
And
together,
there's some
one a
key
week.
the key takeaway
For
you
they
here is
form
to
the basis of these
understand the
three
structure
questions.
of this book. It's going to
What
be
experience does
the
that
preface
person
will tell
have
you
that's
this
similar
book
to I
is
have?
divided into two key parts:
How
a
did that
instruction
speaker
part,
express
which is
a
the first
feeling,
100 up until
feeling or
page
emotion that I
164, and
have?
also
And then
in the
how
back
can
there's some
information
personal stories.
book in this
Now,
story
some of you
help me to
may
stay sober?
have heard in the past
Anytime
that
you read a
maybe the
personal
personal
story
stories
or
are
you
just
hear
that. They're just
someone
stories and they're
tell their
not the
story
instructions
in
on
an
how to
AA
do this
meeting,
program.
these are
I'm
the three
going to tell
things
you,
that you should always
my
look for.
personal
I look
experience
forward
is
to
that
working with you on
the
day 2.
the personal stories are what allowed me to become a full functioning member of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I didn't believe I was an alcoholic.